Neanderthals disappeared about 40,000 years ago, but small pieces of their DNA are still walking around inside many people today. For people with major ancestry outside Africa, the usual estimate is about 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA. That does not mean anyone is part modern human and part Neanderthal in a simple species sense. Every living person is fully modern human, but some people carry small DNA segments inherited from Neanderthal ancestors. Different people carry different segments, so across all humanity, much more of the Neanderthal genome survives than any one person carries alone. The classic story says modern humans leaving Africa met Neanderthals around 50,000 to 60,000 years ago, probably in the Middle East. That basic story still works, but newer research added an important twist about Africa. Older accounts often said African populations had little or no Neanderthal DNA, yet newer studies found some Neanderthal-derived sequence there too. Much of that may have arrived through back migration into Africa and more complex population movements than early models captured. The biggest modern effects show up first in the immune system. Neanderthal-derived variants helped shape how modern humans responded to new Eurasian pathogens after leaving Africa. Some of the best studied examples sit in immune gene clusters called TLR1, TLR6, and TLR10. Another well-studied set sits in the antiviral OAS1, OAS2, and OAS3 pathway. These inherited variants may have helped in some disease environments, but immune genes often come with trade-offs. A response that helps against one infection can also raise the risk of inflammation or autoimmunity in another setting. That trade-off became famous again during COVID. A Neanderthal-derived haplotype on chromosome 12 involving the OAS region was linked with protection against severe COVID in some populations. But a different Neanderthal-derived haplotype on chromosome 3 was linked with greater risk of severe COVID. So Neanderthal DNA is not a magic good gene package, because one ancient segment can help while another can hurt. Skin and hair are another strong research area. Several introgressed variants affect pigmentation, keratin production, tanning response, sunburn tendency, and other parts of skin biology. One often discussed example is BNC2, a locus tied to pigmentation and freckling in European populations. From an evolutionary view, that makes sense because modern humans moved into very different sunlight and climate conditions across Eurasia. But these effects are nudges, not simple commands written in stone. Sleep timing is another place where ancient DNA seems to leave a mark. Large association studies have linked introgressed variants to chronotype and other sleep-related traits. People often turn that into the joke that your sleep schedule is Neanderthal, but the real science is subtler. What the data really suggests is that ancient introgression may have influenced body timing in places with different daylight patterns. Pain sensitivity gives one of the sharpest recent examples. A study in a Latin American cohort found Neanderthal-derived variants in SCN9A were linked to lower mechanical pain thresholds after sensitization. SCN9A helps encode the NaV1, 7-sodium channel, which is important in pain signaling. That result does not mean Neanderthal DNA simply makes someone bad at handling pain in everyday life. It means one ancient variant affected a specific pain test in a measurable way. Metabolism is another big field in this story. A Neanderthal-derived variant in SLC16A111 has been linked with increased risk of type 2 diabetes in some Latin American populations. Other archaic-linked variants have been associated with thyroid function, fat metabolism, glucose handling, and body mass-related traits. One likely explanation is environmental mismatch, where an old variant that once worked fine becomes less helpful in a modern food environment. Researchers have also seen associations with mood, depression-related traits, smoking behavior, heart rate, and parts of brain development. Those findings are interesting, but they need more caution than the best immune and skin results. Complex behavior and psychiatric traits are shaped by many genes and many environments at the same time. That means a statistical link is not the same as a clean line from one Neanderthal ancestor to one modern personality trait. Another important part of the story is what did not survive. Natural selection seems to have removed many introgressed variants that were harmful in modern human genetic backgrounds. That is why Neanderthal ancestry is uneven across the genome instead of spread everywhere evenly. The surviving pieces are a filtered legacy, not a full untouched inheritance. Many of those pieces also work by changing gene regulation, not by swapping one obvious protein for another. In simple terms, ancient DNA often affects when, where, or how strongly a gene is used. That helps explain why most effects are modest and depend heavily on context. So the line that Neanderthal traits are hiding in your DNA is true, but only when said carefully. They are usually not dramatic throwbacks or caveman features bursting through the mirror. They are old genetic nudges that can shape immunity, skin, sleep, pain, and disease risk in small but real ways. The deeper lesson is that human evolution was not a clean straight line, because ancient human groups mixed and left living traces. Neanderthals are gone as a people, but their tiny genetic fingerprints still whisper through the biology of millions of humans today. If you want more simple science stories about OAS genes, BNC2, and the hidden past inside modern DNA, subscribe and watch our next history video. The 1 to 2% figure is easy to misunderstand because it sounds like a simple species mix when it is really a patchwork of small inherited segments. One person does not carry every surviving Neanderthal fragment, but different people carry different pieces, so humanity stores far more of the old genome collectively. That is why geneticists talk about introgression, which means ancient DNA entered modern human genomes through interbreeding and then got filtered over time. The immune examples are some of the strongest because early modern humans left Africa and entered Eurasian disease environments they had never faced before. In that setting, a borrowed Neanderthal variant could sometimes give useful help against local pathogens, but immune help almost always comes with balance problems, because a stronger response can also bring harmful inflammation when circumstances change. The COVID examples made this point easy to see for the public. A chromosome 12 haplotype in the OAS region was linked with lower risk of severe COVID in some groups, which suggests one old variant was protective. A different chromosome 3 haplotype pushed risk in the opposite direction, which shows ancient inheritance can help and hurt at the same time. Skin and hair effects also make evolutionary sense because Eurasian climates differ sharply from the environments where earlier modern humans evolved. Variants tied to pigmentation, keratin, tanning, and sunburn may have mattered as human groups spread through new levels of ultraviolet light and cold. The BNC2 example is useful because it gives a concrete gene region linked with pigmentation and freckling in European populations. Sleep and circadian biology fit that same adaptation story, since daylight patterns change strongly with latitude and season. If introgressed variants influenced chronotype, they may have helped bodies adjust to very different annual light cycles outside Africa. Pain research adds a more personal and surprising angle because people can imagine what changed pain sensitivity might actually feel like. The SCN9A finding was specific to a measured pain test after sensitization, which is why it is interesting without supporting wild exaggeration. Metabolism shows another common pattern. An ancient variant may once have been harmless or useful, but become risky in a modern diet. The SLC16A11 association with type 2 diabetes in some Latin American populations is one of the best-known examples of that mismatch idea. Researchers have also reported links to thyroid function, body mass-related traits, smoking behavior, heart rate, and depression-related measures. Those links deserve caution because behavior and mood are shaped by many genes, many experiences, and many social environments all at once. Natural selection removed many introgressed variants that did not work well inside modern human genetic backgrounds, especially in sensitive reproductive regions. That is why Neanderthal ancestry is not spread smoothly across the genome like paint on a wall. The surviving archaic pieces are the parts that got past thousands of generations of filtering. Many of those pieces change gene regulation rather than changing a protein in a dramatic on or off way. That regulatory effect helps explain why Neanderthal inheritance usually changes probabilities and tendencies, not destiny. Reviews of this field keep stressing that most archaic effects on complex traits are small, which is why Neanderthal DNA matters without controlling who a person becomes. Your ancient inheritance is biologically real, but it works inside the rest of your genome, your development, and your environment rather than over them. That is why the strongest takeaway is not caveman nostalgia, but biological subtlety, where ancient fragments still shape modern variation without rewriting the whole human story. Across millions of people, those small fragments preserve a real record of ancient mixing that evolution never fully erased. Those traces are small, but they are real.